Hey everyone, this is John Trent with BountyIntoComics.com, and we wanted to bring you a weekly recap of the top news stories from this week. And we're going to talk about Frank Cho, we're going to talk about Black Superman, we're going to talk about Mike Miller, and we're going to talk about Donal DeLay. So let's get right into it with Frank Cho. He's currently doing DC Comics variant covers on Harley Quinn, and he had some pretty harsh words to say about Comicsgate this past week. So let me just read to you what he said. He posted this on his Facebook, and it was also on his Instagram. Cho writes, "It has come to my attention from various sources that people are associating me with Comicsgate, an alt-right hate group in the comic book field. As a proud liberal Democrat, I'm against everything Comicsgate stands for. I'm pro-equal rights, pro-diversity, pro-comics. I always believe that everyone is welcomed at the comic table and no one group should try to force another to their idea of what is normal and not normal. So let me be very clear where I stand." He would then go on to drop an expletive and say F Comicsgate. You can imagine what he said. So this comes off, Frank Cho's statement comes off of Scott Snyder, Bill Sienkiewicz, and a number of other comic book professionals who have come out and spoken against Comicsgate in the past month or so. What's really interesting is with Frank Cho is that if you look at the history of Comicsgate, the hashtag on Twitter, he was actually kind of one of the inspirations for people actually like adopting that kind of hashtag as their own. If you look back on Twitter, it originally started in 2012. There was like a single tweet, but then if you go back and look at 2014, late September, you'll see that Milo Manara and the Spider-Woman variant cover saw that the hashtag became popularized, and it was mainly by people deriding people who were defending Manara's Spider-Woman variant. Marvel would eventually pull that variant cover, and it kind of was the beginning of the Comicsgate movement back in 2014. If you're unfamiliar with what happened after Marvel pulled the Milo Manara Spider-Woman cover, Frank Cho and Manara would do a number of, especially Frank Cho, he would do a number of variant covers and like sketches for, he did one for Street Fighter where he had Cammy. It was an actual official cover. Cammy in the Spider-Woman pose that Milo Manara used. And then he also did a number of like sketch variants. His most famous one was with Spider-Gwen, and he has a little in the Spider-Woman pose, and then you see all the Spider-Mans yelling outrage in the corner. So it's really interesting that Frank Cho would come out against Comicsgate when they were some of his biggest defenders when he was being lambasted by a number of people for the way he draws comics. And Frank Cho's also been, he's also been the center of controversy before. Most recently, he was kicked off the Wonder Woman variant covers by Greg Rucka and DC Comics, and over his artistic style. If you go to our website, we have a full story. You can see Frank's Wonder Woman variant cover that got him kicked off. He had drawn a little bit more sexiness to Wonder Woman than I guess Greg Rucka and DC wanted for a variant cover, so they had it actually censored where they moved the frame a little bit further to the left to crop out some of Wonder Woman's dress. So that's what happened with Frank Cho this week. Let's talk about Black Superman. This is a huge story. It's kind of been a story that's been going on for about 2 weeks now. First started with a rumor last week that Henry Cavill and DC Films had split and Henry Cavill would no longer be Superman. The rumor was kind of got some legs because he recently took on the role of Geralt for Netflix's Witcher. But it was kind of interesting. There was no one really like confirmed or denied anything. You just had this report from the Hollywood Reporter, which initially didn't really make any sense because they were citing some Supergirl movie where Clark Kent would still be a child while Supergirl was on Earth. So Henry Cavill could no longer be Superman if they used that story that they had planned. But anyways, after the Henry Cavill story dropped, another story came out that Michael B. Jordan could be the next Superman, and pretty much all hell broke loose on social media on both ways. Plenty of like hardcore like comic book fans were just like completely like unhappy with that decision, thinking that it was more of race swapping that big Hollywood's been doing for the past number of years. But my colleague Philip Pratt actually had a extremely interesting story that he wrote up about Black Superman and how we can have a Black Superman without altering Clark Kent. And if you're a fan of the comics, you probably already know kind of the points he's making. He points to a number of characters who are either alternate universe characters, like Val Zod or Calvin Ellis, who exist in alternate universes that are black characters. Val Zod is a Black Kryptonian. Calvin Ellis is actually the president and Superman at the time. And then there's also in continuity black superheroes who appeared after Superman died in the death of Superman. You had Steel, John Henry Irons, kind of take on that reign. Lois Lane even says that he embodies the spirit of Superman and Clark Kent. And he just, Philip goes through and breaks down a lot of what happened with Black Superman and why we can have a Black Superman without actually like fundamentally altering Clark Kent. So if DC wants to really go out there, they should start embracing their multiverse. They have plenty of characters that they can like really delve into in these like alternate universes, or they used to call them Elseworlds, that they should really tap into. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and I think DC's missing an opportunity, and they should do it. And you should definitely read Philip's article. It's highly enlightening. Next up, this happened just yesterday. With Mike S. Miller. He was scheduled to appear at Grand Rapids Comic-Con as a guest. They had even signed a contract with him to have him appear there, and they have reneged on that contract and canceled it, and they disinvited Mike S. Miller, effectively kicking him out of the convention. This was huge. This came off the news of Marvel artist Mike Deodato declaring that he would no longer be attending any conventions where anyone related to Comicsgate would be attending at as a guest. This was backed up by Gail Simone, and Phil Jimenez would also join that kind of that pledge, is what they're kind of like. I saw hashtag Deodato pledge was going around. So there's been a number of comic book professionals who have joined in on that, and the reason why Miller was disinvited, Miller he revealed a letter that the Grand Rapids Comic-Con sent him, and you can read it on our website, which you'll be able to find the link in the description below. But here, I'll read it to you right now. It says, "Hi, Mike. I'm writing in regards to some very disparaging remarks you have made in regards to minorities and women over the past few weeks through your Twitter feed and podcast. On the podcast, Marvel, The People Are Revolting, published by you on YouTube on August 29, you interviewed a Nigerian national as VKTR on Twitter about the Comicsgate issue. I found several of the remarks made in regards to VKTR after he left the podcast to be quite disturbing. A couple comments were made by you in regards to him being a Nigerian prince and the money scandals in that country, which I found to be stereotyping and incredibly inappropriate, as you had zero evidence of his involvement in those crimes. And the final comment, that he probably doesn't know who his father is, was downright unprofessional, a blatant disrespect to his national heritage, and a stereotype based on his skin color. I also found the excuse that you continually posted on Twitter that U.S. Democratic policies created single parenthood in African American community in this country to be a cop-out and completely irrelevant, considering that he is not a citizen of this country. We have also noticed several comments over the last couple months directed at women that I found to be downright rude, since our leadership staff is 65% women and our ownership is 50% women. I feel that these kind of comments have no place in an event that gears specifically towards families and has a high female demographic. As a result, I have decided, as the event director and person responsible for our lineup, to pull you from appearing in our event due to these xenophobic comments. I am sorry to do this, as I believe in freedom of speech, but there is a responsibility to the speech in which you choose to participate. We will not be stating a reason as to why you are off the ticket, just the fact that you are no longer appearing. I'm hoping that you will choose to not make a major scene on this, as we will not do so. Thank you, and I'm sorry that it came to this. Sincerely, Mark Hodges, event director. So there you have it. That's why Mike S. Miller was removed from the Grand Rapids Comic-Con. And we've had some follow-up stories to that. We did an interview with Twitter and cosplayer Renfamous, who Miller believed to be the reason why Grand Rapids kicked him out. She had been tweeting at Grand Rapids over the past couple months, telling them that he was a bigot and a racist, and he was being disrespectful to women, which are kind of the same things we saw echoed in that letter. And you can read her comments and why she and what her. You can read her comments and what her thoughts on Mike S. Miller getting kicked out of Grand Rapids Comic-Con are on our website. That link will also be in the description. There was also a follow-up where Mike Deodato began praising the Grand Rapids Comic-Con for their decision to kick out Mike Miller. And as I've stated before, Deodato was one of the ones who created this pledge to never attend a Comic-Con that anyone associated with Comicsgate is a member of. And Mike S. Miller is associated with Comicsgate. He also has a highly successful Indiegogo. He raised over $80,000 for his upcoming comic Lone Star. Which you can find that on Indiegogo, and we actually have a trailer for his Black List universe on our site as well, and you can check that out, which Lone Star will be a part of. So last but not least, this happened on Thursday, and actually, I mean, we reported it on Thursday. It happened earlier this week on Monday, I believe. Or Tuesday. It happened on Tuesday. So Twitter decided to suspend another Comicsgate affiliate creator, Brutus artist Donal DeLay. He's actually currently in the middle of an Indiegogo fundraiser for his book Brutus, which he's doing with Nasser. And we reached out to Donal, and he was specifically kicked out or suspended from Twitter for 7 days for tweeting, "Wow, that's kind of," and then he uses an expletive to describe someone's behavior. The word starts with a C. I'm sure you can figure it out, or you can just read it on our website, which will also be in the description below. But what's interesting is in the Twitter email that they send to him, it doesn't actually include that this was like in a quote tweet. So he had quote tweeted a video by another fellow Comicsgate writer, Antonio Bryce, who had made a video regarding Mags Visaggio's refusal to forgive Richard Meyer, who is also known as the YouTuber Diversity in Comics. Apologies. She won't accept it. After he made that comment, Donal was suspended for 7 days by Twitter, and he actually told us that he was threatened with a complete removal of his Twitter account, that he would no longer be able to access it if he didn't delete the offending tweets. Which he did. He did delete the offending tweets, but he still is serving a 7-day suspension. So he isn't able to access his account. But you can still see that he has tweets from September 18th, which are the last tweets he has. So Donal also spoke to us about the situation, and here's what he had told us. It shows the true character of a person when they refuse to forgive someone who is actively trying to change. It's not really referring to Twitter, but we do go into some of what's happening with Twitter. We look into why he was suspended for that word. If you do an advanced Twitter search for that word or a variation of that word, you'll find a number of Twitter users, probably hundreds of there are at least dozens on the advanced Twitter search. So I'm assuming there's probably hundreds or even thousands of people who use it. You'll see Hellboy actor Ron Perlman used it just on Wednesday night, where he actually referred to Ted Cruz. He specifically called him that. Ron Perlman has not had his account suspended. There's also people who are referring to entire gaming communities, such as the Mortal Kombat as this too, is this word, and nothing's been happening to them. And what's really interesting is that an article on Business Insider last year actually kind of reports on what might have happened with Donal DeLay. Their report states that Twitter receives significant numbers of complaints at the same time, a mass reporting of an account, and automatically closes it. No warnings, no checks, no customers guarantees whatsoever. The report would go on to say any organized group can now make Twitter work for them, censoring the people they target, to make it label their tweets as, quote, sensitive or potentially offensive, to delete all of them, to hide, suspend, and close the accounts they may see fit. It's enough to launch an organized attack to denounce the targeted accounts as sensitive, offensive, harming, spam, and Twitter will obligingly censor it. It definitely appears like that could have happened to Donal DeLay, especially given the fact that he was commenting on Mags Visaggio's behavior. That's your weekly recap from BountyIntoComics.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll be doing this every week moving forward. And I hope you guys visit our website, and we thank you for supporting us. And just once again, hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much. See you next week.